In an ideal world, would anyone own handguns?
I believe Americans should be able to use and own handguns. I think in an ideal world, our country would do a much better job of protecting the lives of our fellow Americans. We would ensure that anyone who wants to buy a handgun or any weapon goes through an extensive background check to prevent those who are a danger to themselves or to others from owning and using those weapons. I think in an ideal world, we would stop selling weapons of war into our communities where they so often show up in our schools, in our concerts, in our churches, in our synagogues, in our public life. We would have red flag laws to ensure that those who own weapons and are a danger to someone in their lives or to themselves are stopped before it is too late. In an ideal world, we would listen to people instead of political action committees and the gun lobby and the NRA. And I think we can get closer to that ideal world in an administration that will listen to people and put their lives and concerns first.
On healthcare, would you be focused on improving Obamacare or on replacing it with a single payer system?
My focus is on ensuring that we have guaranteed high quality healthcare for every single American, that it is universal for every child, for every woman, for every man in this country. We can begin by improving the Affordable Care Act, but we have to go far beyond that. The plan that I am supporting is Medicare for America, that guarantees that everyone who does not have care today is able to enroll in Medicare. Those who have insufficient health care, meaning they can't afford their premiums or bridge their deductibles or make the copay on their prescription medications or their doctor's visits, they can choose to enroll in Medicare as well. And those who have employer-sponsored insurance that they like because it works for them and their families are able to keep that as well. That is the surest, quickest path to guaranteeing that everybody has high-quality care in the United States.
Do you think it's possible for the next president to stop climate change?
I think it is possible for the next president to help lead this country to ensure that we confront climate change before it is too late. No one person nor any one political party will be able to do this on their own. It's going to take this entire country. Our plan calls for net zero greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2050. It calls for America to be halfway there by 2030, a little more than a decade from where we are right now. Our administration will use executive authority to stop any new oil or gas leases on federal lands to ensure that every dollar of federal procurement reflects the cost of climate change and pollution, gives the opportunity to farmers and those in rural America to lead on this issue as well. For example, paying farmers at a profit to plant cover crops to pull more carbon out of the air and sequester more of it in the soil. If every single one of us in every single part of the country does our part, then we can also take our rightful role on the world stage as the indispensable nation, convene the other powers of the planet to do their part as well, and halt the warming of this planet before it becomes so great that the droughts, the floods, the fires, and the storms that we see today will pale in comparison for the generations that follow. We have 10 years within which to act, and I want to make sure that I do my part to make every single second count for as much as we can to ensure that we do all that is possible while time still remains.
Do you think Israel meets international standards of human rights?
I know that Israel attempts to meet international standards of human rights. I know that they could do a better job, and that's not just my opinion. That's from listening to people in Israel say that about their own country. I think we have a role to play to ensure the safety, the human rights, and the dignity of the people of Israel, as well as the people of what will become the state for the Palestinians, right now the Palestinian Authority. We cannot compel or force a two-state solution, but it should be our diplomatic goal. And every resource that we invest, every diplomatic effort should be towards that end. That's the best way in the long term to guarantee the peace, the stability, and the human rights of all people in that region.
Why don't you just start by telling us who's your hero?
You know, my family, my kids, my wife, Amy, my folks are my heroes, the strongest people I've ever known. the most giving and courageous people I'll ever meet. And so they're my role models, my inspiration, and my reason for doing this.
Do you have a political hero?
Abraham Lincoln is my political hero. He faced the toughest test this country has ever seen and brought us through.
Would there be American troops in Afghanistan at the end of your first term?
There would not. We need to end the wars that began in the case of Afghanistan nearly 18 years ago, in the case of Iraq nearly 28 years ago. Bring these service members back to their home country, to their communities, support them as they transition into civilian life. We have to decide that we will not achieve our foreign policy goals on the backs of 18 and 19 and 20-year-old service members who are deployed in dozens of countries half a world away right now. We have to begin to bring these wars to a close and address legitimate foreign policy concerns and goals through our diplomacy and through working with other countries in the region.
How many hours of sleep do you get a night?
Not enough.
Do you think illegal immigration is a major problem for the U.S.?
No. Undocumented immigration is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to rewrite our laws. I think that immigration is one of the greatest opportunities for the United States. We just introduced a plan that would ensure that we speed the process by which those who have green cards in this country can become full U.S. citizens, participate to their full potential towards the betterment of this country. We bring millions out of the shadows, beginning with more than 1 million dreamers, to ensure that they become U.S. citizens as soon as possible. They're already contributing so much to the success and the greatness of this country. Imagine what they could do as U.S. citizens. And then I want to make sure that we follow our asylum laws and treat those who are coming to our border, fleeing some of the deadliest countries on the face of the planet, with the humanity that they deserve, that's in the best interests and traditions of the United States of America. I will put an end to the chaos that Donald Trump has created at our border, whether it's the walls that he wants to build that we will not allow to be constructed, or no longer putting kids in cages, or reuniting those families who have been separated. This country will begin living our values when it comes to our immigration laws.
I can't totally tell if that's a yes or a no on whether illegal immigration is a major problem.
Undocumented immigration is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to rewrite our laws that are in accord with our values, with the reality that we see in our communities, and with the best interests of this country. We just need leadership that reflects that, and that's the kind of leadership that I hope to be able to provide.
Where would you go on your first international trip as president?
I would go to Mexico, our most important neighbor, a potential ally as we address other significant challenges in the Western Hemisphere. If it is the outmigration from the Northern Triangle countries of Central America, if it is addressing the deep humanitarian concerns that we have in Venezuela, if it is making sure that we lead in concert with the other states of the Americas, that leadership begins with our relationship with Mexico. And it should be a relationship based on respect and trust and treating one another with dignity.
Tell us about the last time you were embarrassed.
I can't remember. Cynthia, will you look up the last time I was embarrassed? And I was, well, that's when I embarrassed them. I was at my daughter's graduation and I was making too much noise, cheering her on, and I could tell that she was embarrassed. I can't remember. I'll come back to that one. Cynthia, will you look up the last time I was embarrassed and get that back to me? Yeah. I mean, I can think of a small moment. Yesterday, we were having a round table as part of a rollout of our immigration plan. And there were 20 extraordinary people from the El Paso community, immigration advocates, immigrants, former service members who enlisted while they were green card holders but had not yet become citizens. And in the middle of this really engaging, important conversation, I knocked over a bottle of water that was set on the ground before me, and was embarrassed that I had done that.
Great.
That was literally the last time I was embarrassed.
Do you think President Trump has committed crimes in office?
I believe President Trump has committed crimes while in office. From my reading of the Mueller report and from listening to his statement during his press conference, it is clear that he felt that he did not have the authority to bring criminal charges, but felt that it was important that Congress, which can, under the Constitution, do this through impeachment proceedings, begin that process. Failing to do that creates a culture of impunity and a precedent that some people in this country, because of the position that they hold, are above the law. And in the world's greatest democracy, that precedent cannot stand. So, as politically difficult as it is to confront this for some, we must for the future of this country and for the future of our democracy.
Do you support or oppose the death penalty?
I oppose the death penalty. Neither the federal government nor the governments of the states should be in the process of taking the lives of our fellow Americans.
Should tech giants like Facebook, Amazon, and Google be broken up?
I don't know. I don't know whether it is appropriate for a candidate for the presidency or for the president, him or herself, to be designating which companies should be broken up. But what I can say is that we must have far stronger regulations to protect our privacy and our personal information. These tech giants are clearly unable or unwilling to do that without greater federal oversight. As president, I would embolden the FTC to make sure that there is far greater oversight and protection for people and their data at a time when the people of this country have in effect become the products that are marketed on these platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat or Instagram. We need greater protections, and as president, I will make sure that we provide them.
Are you open to expanding the size of the Supreme Court?
I don't know that expanding the size of the Supreme Court is the best way to address legitimate concerns we have with its objectivity, given the issues that it will decide, whether it's the future of women's reproductive freedom, whether it's corporate personhood, whether it is large donors and corporate donors and special interest donors in our democracy. I think the appropriate way to address this is to have fixed term limits for Supreme Court justices, to have some more regular turnover in their term of service, to decrease the temperature in the partisan fights that lead up to the nominations and confirmations. I think that's the best path that we can take as a country.
When did your family first arrive in the United States and how?
Well, there are lots of different family members who preceded me, depending on how many generations you go back. But I know that the O'Rourkes came from Ireland in the 19th century. There are family members on my mom's side who came, 100 years before that. But I like to think that my family members are part of a long tradition in this country of welcoming immigrants and asylum seekers and refugees from the world over. The fact that this country is founded on the basis not of race or ethnicity or common ancestry, but this idea that we are all created equal. The idea being to equal opportunity and an ability to make this the greatest country on the face of the planet because we are a country of the people of the planet who have found a home here. So my story, perhaps not unlike many other people's stories, begins with those first immigrants who arrived here in this country.
What's your comfort food on the campaign trail?
Any kind of fast food.
What do you do to relax?
I listen to music.
Do you think anyone deserves to have $1 billion?
That's a good question. I don't know that anyone deserves to have $1 billion. I think we have a concentration of wealth and power and privilege in this country that we haven't seen since the last Gilded Age. And that concentration of wealth and power works counter to our democracy. So both from a perspective of making sure that we have the resources to invest in people and communities so that everyone is educated enough and well enough and able to participate in economic life in this country, and to ensure that everyone sees a future for themselves. And there are not some who have better access to our democracy, to shaping the direction of this country. to guiding the course of this nation, it's very important that we break down that concentration and ensure that we have a greater level of equality in the United States.